Part 1. The Illusion of Love. My name is Hannah Carter. I am 33 years old. If you had asked me a year ago what kind of wife I was, I would have said I was loyal and patient. I believed that love could survive hard times. My husband Ethan and I had been married for 4 years. We lived in a small, beautiful house outside Denver. It was a quiet neighborhood with trimmed lawns and friendly neighbors. From the outside, our life looked perfectly normal. I worked at a dental office and Ethan worked in sales. We had everything we needed. Part 2. The Growing Silence. Every Sunday morning used to be beautiful. I made pancakes while Ethan drank coffee and smiled at me. But somewhere along the way, Ethan changed. Or maybe he had always been changing and I was too busy loving him to notice. He started coming home very late from work. When I asked how his day was, he just muttered "long" and disappeared into the shower. At dinner, he barely looked up from his plate. The warm house we built was slowly turning into a very cold and quiet place. Part 3. The Secret Screen. At night, the distance between us felt bigger. He lay beside me in bed with his phone glowing against his face. He typed fast, his fingers moving quickly across the screen. Whenever I moved closer, he immediately turned the screen away. I noticed everything, but I kept quiet. I noticed how he no longer reached for my hand at the grocery store. I noticed how he forgot the little things I said, like my dentist appointment. Every conversation ended with him rubbing his forehead and saying, "Hannah, I am just stressed." Part 4. Fighting for us. Every time he pushed me away, I told myself the same thing. Marriage has hard seasons. People get tired, but love means staying. So I stayed. I smiled when I wanted to cry. I made his favorite pasta every Friday night. I bought tickets to movies he liked. I asked if he wanted to watch a show with me, even when I knew he would say he was too tired. I kept trying to reach him even though it felt like he was standing behind a locked door.
Part 5. The Sudden Surprise. Then, one Tuesday evening in early October, Ethan came home carrying takeout food. He had a look on his face I hadn't seen in months. He actually smiled at me. "Pack a bag for the weekend," he said, setting the food on the kitchen counter. I booked us a trip. I stared at him, unable to believe my ears. "A trip?" I asked. He nodded, just the two of us. 3 days at a lake cabin. We really need a break. My chest felt tight with pure happiness.
Part 6. A Ray of Hope. For a second, I couldn't speak. It felt like something inside me had finally taken a full breath after months of holding it in. A real trip? I asked, almost laughing with relief. Ethan walked over and kissed the top of my head. "Yes, Hannah," he said, "a real trip." That night, after he fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling with tears of joy in my eyes. Maybe this was our chance to fix things. I pictured us sitting by the lake, talking honestly for the first time in months. Part 7. Getting ready. I imagined us taking long walks, laughing again, and remembering who we used to be before bills and silence moved into our marriage. For the first time in a long time, I let myself feel truly hopeful. The next few days, I threw myself into preparing for the trip. It meant everything to me. I bought a soft, cream-colored sweater for the cold mornings by the water. I got my nails done, something I hadn't done in months. I even took Friday off work with a bright smile. Part 8. The Open Laptop. I told my coworkers that my husband was surprising me with a romantic weekend. I wanted this trip to save us. The night before we left, Ethan was out in the garage taking a long work call. I suddenly remembered that I still needed to print the cabin address and reservation details. His laptop was open on the dining table, so I sat down and pulled up his email. I found the booking confirmation almost right away. My eyes moved over the dates and the cabin address. The shocking discovery. Then, my eyes caught something else. I saw the names listed on the reservation. It read, Ethan Carter, Hannah Carter, and Olivia Mason. I froze completely. At first, I thought I was reading it wrong. I blinked hard and leaned closer to the glowing screen. But the name did not change. Olivia Mason. She was Ethan's ex-girlfriend, the woman he had dated for 6 long years before he met me. My hands started shaking so badly I nearly dropped the paper I was holding. Part 10. The Cold Truth. My stomach twisted, and suddenly I couldn't breathe right. It felt like the entire room was spinning around me. Just then, I heard the garage door open behind me. "Hannah," Ethan said as he walked in. I turned around slowly, my face pale, still staring at the screen. "Why?" I asked, my voice so quiet it barely sounded like mine. "Why is Olivia's name on our trip reservation?" His face changed instantly. It was not filled with guilt, but with deep annoyance. The cheap excuse. He walked closer and looked at the screen like it was a small, minor typo. "Oh," he said carelessly. "I was going to tell you." I stood up so fast that my chair scraped loudly against the floor. "You are going to tell me that your ex is coming on our romantic trip?" He sighed heavily and rubbed the back of his neck. "It's not what you think, Hannah." I laughed bitterly. "Then tell me what I am supposed to think, Ethan. Explain this to me." Part 12. The insult. He looked tired, as if my questions were exhausting him. "Olivia has been going through a really hard time lately," he said. "Her boyfriend just left her. She is an absolute mess, and she just needed to get out of town for a few days." "I was just trying to help a friend." I stared at him in complete disbelief. "So, to help a friend, you invited your ex-girlfriend on our marriage trip?" Ethan snapped back angrily. "It's not a marriage trip. It's just a weekend away." Part 13. The heavy journey. My heart dropped into my stomach. A weekend away. That was all it was to him. It wasn't a chance to fix us, or a chance to save our broken marriage. It was just a weekend away, and there was room for Olivia in it. I should have refused to go, but Ethan spent half the night telling me I was overreacting. He said I was his wife and I should trust him. The next morning, I sat in the passenger seat in complete silence as he drove us into the mountains. Part 14. The arrival. The sky was gray and the roads were wet from the rain. When we finally reached the cabin, my stomach tightened painfully. It sat near the edge of a cold lake, surrounded by tall pine trees. It should have been a beautiful, romantic place, but all I could see was the woman standing on the front porch. It was Olivia. She was wrapped in a long beige coat, holding a coffee mug. She looked comfortable, like she belonged there. She smiled warmly and said, "Hannah, I'm glad you came." Part 15. A guest in my own life. I forced a tight smile, but my eyes moved to Ethan. "Glad you came?" That meant he had already told her about our fight. He had shared my pain with his ex before we even arrived. Inside, the cabin smelled like cinnamon candles. But Olivia had already settled in. Her sweater was on a kitchen chair. Her book was on the coffee table. And her shoes were by the door. This wasn't our trip anymore. It was theirs. And I was just an awkward guest. Part 16. The painful afternoon. The first few hours were incredibly painful. Olivia kept acting sweet and harmless, which made it worse. "I hope this isn't too weird," she told me in the kitchen. "Ethan said you're really understanding." Understanding. That was the word he used for me, not hurt or humiliated. Later, they slipped into conversations about their past so easily. They talked about college, old road trips, and inside jokes. They laughed heartily while I sat on the couch, feeling smaller and smaller by the minute. Part 17. The cold walk. Ethan couldn't even remember how I took my coffee, but he remembered Olivia's favorite late-night pancake orders. Before dinner, we went for a walk by the freezing lake. I stayed a few steps behind them, listening to Olivia complain about her breakup. Ethan nodded with a soft, patient expression he hadn't given me in months. Then Olivia shivered from the cold wind. Without hesitation, Ethan took off his warm jacket and draped it around her shoulders. He didn't even look back to check on me. Part 18. The porch swing. That night, I went to bed early just to escape them. Sometime after midnight, I woke up to absolute silence. The space beside me in bed was completely empty. My heart began to pound. I wrapped a blanket around myself and walked downstairs quietly. The house was dark, except for the back porch light. Looking through the glass door, I saw them. Ethan and Olivia were sitting together on the porch swing, wrapped in the same blanket. Olivia's head was resting peacefully on his shoulder. Part 19. The secret confession. Olivia was crying softly. "I never thought I'd lose you forever," she whispered into the night. My breath caught in my throat. I waited for Ethan to pull away, to remind her that he was a married man. But he didn't. He just sat there in the dark silence, holding her tightly. I ran back upstairs, sat on the floor, and pressed my hand over my mouth to quiet my tears. I realized I had been fighting to save a marriage that Ethan was already sharing with someone else. Part 20. The confrontation. The next morning, I stood in the kitchen and told Ethan, "We need to talk." We walked out onto the cold deck. "I saw you last night on the swing with Olivia," I said directly. Ethan's face went completely still. "Am I your wife, Ethan? Or just the woman who stayed after she left?" He looked cornered. Finally, he whispered, "I thought this trip might help me figure out what I'm feeling." He brought me here so he could decide between his wife and his ex. Part 21. Packing the bags. I stopped breathing for a second. The truth cut through me like ice. I turned around, walked into the cabin, and dragged my suitcase onto the bed. Ethan followed me upstairs, looking desperate. "Hannah, please don't do this. It's more complicated than you think." I turned to him, tears streaming down my face. "It is very simple, Ethan. I am your wife. I was supposed to be the person you protected and chose. Instead, you brought another woman to test our marriage." Part 22. The broken promises. "I never wanted to hurt you," he cried out, his face crumpling with sudden regret. I folded my clothes with trembling hands. "That doesn't matter anymore, Ethan. What matters is that you did hurt me. You lied to me. You let me think this trip was about us, when it was really about you trying to see if your past mattered more than your marriage." He reached out to touch my arm, but I pulled away sharply. "Don't touch me," I whispered. Part 23. The final goodbye. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. Ethan looked completely broken, but it was unfair. I had spent months feeling entirely alone in my own marriage while he ignored me. "I loved you," I said, my voice cracking with deep sorrow. "I loved you enough to keep forgiving things I shouldn't have. I kept making excuses for your silence. The truth is, I was fighting for a marriage you had already given up on." He had no answer. Part 24. Walking away. I carried my heavy suitcase downstairs. Olivia was standing near the stone fireplace, her face completely pale. "Hannah," she said softly, "I am so sorry." I looked at her clearly for the first time. She wasn't a perfect ghost from the past, just a woman taking a place that was never hers. "You should be," I said quietly. I walked out the front door, got into my car, and drove away into the cold morning, leaving them both behind. Part 25. The road to freedom. The drive home was a blur of heavy tears. I had to pull over twice because I couldn't see the road through my crying. Ethan called my phone constantly, sending texts saying, "I'm sorry. I'll cut Olivia off. Please give us another chance." But it was all too late. 3 months later, I officially filed for divorce. It was painful, but the pain was different now. It was the pain of healing, not the pain of breaking. This terrible trip didn't save my marriage, but it saved me. I was finally free. The final ending. In the end, Ethan lost the woman who loved him through every silence, every excuse, and every lie. And I learned a very important lesson. Being alone hurts far less than staying with someone who makes you feel alone while standing right beside you. If you liked this story, please like the video and subscribe to my channel for more English stories. Leave a comment below. What would you do if you were Hannah? Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.